Hey everyone, and welcome back to Daily Tuition. In this lecture, we are going to understand the basic concept of socket.io. Most of the people love to communicate through messaging. We used to write text to our friends for various reasons. The communication between you and your friend is done with a library like socket.io. Socket.io is a library that enables runtime bidirectional and event-based communication between the browser and the server. It uses Node.js server and JavaScript client library for the browser. Let me explain how socket.io works in simple terms. The client will try to establish a web connection. This is what we call a WebSocket connection. A WebSocket is a communication protocol which provides a full duplex and low latency channel between the server and the browser. As I said, socket.io uses bidirectional communication, means two or more parties take part in the conversation. Every action in socket.io is considered as event. So to send the message, you emit an event with the message data. Let's take a look at a very simple practical example to understand how the socket.io works. I'm going to create a new application inside this VS Code. So let me create a new folder inside this tutorial. Here I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to say here socket. You can specify any name to this folder, that's upon you. And then I'm going to open my terminal and enter into my project directory. I'm going to say here cd socket. So this will enter into my project directory. And now I'm going to initialize this project as npm package. So I'm going to say npm init-y to skip all the questions and create package.json file. So I'm going to have here package.json. Inside the terminal, I'm going to clear the screen and then I'm going to install few libraries here. To install libraries, I need to say npm node package manager I for install, and I want to install Express, the Node framework. Then I'm going to say nodemon and socket.io. So I'm going to install three libraries inside this project. Express is used to create Node server. Nodemon is going to allow us to run the Express server every time we make any changes in the project. And then I'm going to install socket.io. I'm going to press enter, and this is going to install all these three libraries in the node modules folder. So I'm going to have access to all these libraries inside the node modules folder. So now once you have all these three packages, just first clear the screen, open the package.json, and as you can see here, let me just get rid of this test. I'm going to create here a command called start, and then I'm going to say nodemon. I'm going to call my nodemon library, and I want to execute a file called main.js. And then I want to watch this file every time we make changes in it. So I'm going to pass here watch flag. Just for that, let me save this file and let me create this main.js inside the root directory. So in the socket folder, here I'm going to create main.js. Now, just for that, here I'm going to create a simple Express application. So as you know, to create an Express application, you start with the constant keyword, then create a variable Express is equal to, and then you require the Express library, something like this. And then you create a constant variable again to create a new instance of the Express. So you can say here constant app Express and pass here parenthesis. So this will create a new instance for your new Express application. Just for that, I'm going to say here constant port is equal to, and then I'm going to say here process.env.port. Then you can use this variable, or you can pass here your port number, which is 8080. You can pass here 3000 as well. That's upon you. You can specify any name to your port. Just for that, you need to make a route. So to create a route in Express, you start with the app.get. I'm going to make get HTTP request. When I open the root URL of my project, I want to execute this callback function. And to this callback function, I'm going to pass request and response parameter to send request and response. Just for now, I'm simply going to say response.json, and I'm going to return a response get request, something like this. This is just a JSON response, right? Oops, I think I misspelled this parameter. It's request and response. So we have two parameters to this HTTP request, and then we listen to this app on this 8080 port. You have to add app.listen, and where you want to listen this app, I want to listen this app on port, and I want to execute a callback function, and I'm going to just say here console.log, and I'm just going to say here app listening on, and then I'm going to specify here my port number. So this will just print a message, app listening on port 8080. Now let me save this and start my server. So I'm going to open my terminal, and as you know, we are already in the project directory. So I just need to execute this start command, this one. To execute this, you need to say npm start. So this is going to start this project, and as you can see, I'm going to have this message, app listening on port 8080. So now if I open my browser on the port localhost 8080, you can see I'm going to get here a message called get request. As you know, we return this message from the main.js right from here. So we successfully executed the Express application. We already learned this in the previous Express tutorials. But now what I want to create a communication between client and server. As you know, we use the socket.io file for that. So to create that, you have to first call the HTTP module. So I'm going to say here constant HTTP is equal to require HTTP. So once you have your HTTP module, don't worry, you don't have to install this module because it's inbuilt. So you just have to say HTTP dot server, and you have to pass your app to this HTTP. So now you're binding your app with this HTTP request. Just for that, you have to attach this HTTP to the socket.io. To do that, let me just first create here a command and say attach HTTP server to the socket.io. So to attach the HTTP server, you have to say constant io is equal to require, and what you have to require is socket.io, and then you have to call here in the parentheses HTTP. That's it. What you have to do is you have to first attach the app to the HTTP module, and then attach that HTTP module to the socket.io. Once you've done that, you have to create a new connection. As I said, when you want to connect two people, you have to make a new unique connection. So to create a new connection, let me create here a command and say create a new connection. Now let me create a connection here. Now as you know, we are on the server side. I want to send the message to the client. So to do that, I'm simply going to say io, the instance of this socket.io. Then I'm going to pass here dot, and then call a method of it, which is on. Now this method is going to take an event as a first parameter and event listener as a second parameter. I'm going to start the connection. So I'm going to say here connection, then I'm going to pass here comma, and then I'm going to pass here socket, the parameter, and then I'm going to return a callback function. So now this statement is going to create a new connection from the server side. Let's do the same thing from the client side. So I'm going to create a new file inside this project. So let me create a new folder first here, src source, and inside that I'm going to put index.html file. Let me create here exclamation mark and press tab. This will create a simple HTML5 snippet, and then I'm simply going to say socket.io. Then just down here, what we need to do is I need to add here a script tag. Now inside this body, let me add here h1 heading tag to display some message. So I'm going to say here get response from the server. So this is just an HTML response, and after that I'm going to say here script, and inside this script you have to create a constant variable socket is equal to, and call here a function io. This is a global function, but where you can get this function is from the socket.io file. So you need to first include that file before the script tag. So at the top you have to just call script with the source, and then you have to say here socket.io / socket.io.js. If you want, you can specify the actual path of this file from this node module folder. That's upon you. Let me save this file back to the main.js, And instead of returning this response, I want to return this index.html file. I'm going to get rid of the response.js, and I'm going to say here response.send file, and in the parenthesis I'm going to call here path object. As you can see, as a first parameter we need to pass the path of the file. So let me just include here constant path is equal to require path. You don't have to install this path library because it's already in the project. So you just have to say here path, then I'm going to just say here path dot join, and then I'm going to join the directory name, the global variable, which is going to return the current project directory, and then I'm going to specify here comma and pass here a single quote and say src, the custom folder name, and then specify index.html. That's it. So this is going to now return the index.html file as a response. If I back to my project and reload the browser, you can see I'm going to get here get response from the server. So this will just load the index.html file. Now just for that, let me just put this connection after this app.get. That doesn't matter, you can put this at the top as well, but I will prefer to put this connection after this get method. Now just for that, what I want to show you what do we have inside this socket. If I print console.log here with the socket, let me first reload the browser, back to my project, and if I open the terminal, I'm not going to get anything. This is because, as you can see, I'm listening to the app right now. I'm not listening to the socket server. We have to change this app and we have to listen to this HTTP server. So I'm going to get rid of this app right from here and listen to the HTTP server, something like this. So now let me save the changes, reload the browser, and back to my terminal. This is going to print an object. Inside this object, you have multiple properties and values. The important property of this socket is the ID. So let me just pass here socket.id. Let me save this. When I scroll down, you can see I'm going to get here a response. The new connection is assigned with a random 20 character identifier. I print the same socket.id in the index.html. You can notice I don't have anything inside this script. Now let's do the same thing and print this socket.id in the client side. So you can see in the script we just have here a socket. So if I say here socket.on, this is going to call an event, and here I'm going to say on connect. If any client connect with the server, so I'm going to call here an event connect, and then I'm going to call here a callback function, something like this. And inside this I'm going to say console.log, and then I'm going to print here socket.id. Let me save these changes, back to the main.js, save this as well. You can see I'm going to get here a new random character identifier. If I reload this browser, you can see right here I'm also going to get a new 20 character unique identifier. When you back to your terminal, you can see here when you reload the browser, you will get a new connection identifier, and the identifier of the server and the client will completely match because we have the same connection from the server to the client. So both the connection is connected with the same ID. So the socket.io is going to create a new connection on unique 20 character identifier with the same ID. So now you can notice the client and the server is now connected. Now let me just send some message to the client. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this console.log, this socket.id, and instead of this I'm simply going to say here a user connected. So now when the user is connected, I'm going to get this message. After that I'm going to say socket.on. I'm going to create an event, as you can see, and as a first parameter I'm going to say disconnect. If the user is disconnected, I'm going to execute a callback function, or you can call here an arrow function, something like this. And then I'm going to say here console.log and print a message, a user disconnected. So if anytime the user disconnected, I'm going to get this message. Otherwise I'm going to get this a user connected message. You can do the same thing in the client side as well. Let me show you the result first. Save the changes, open the browser. You can see we have here a message, a user connected. If I close this tab, let me copy this URL. If I close this tab, you can see I'm going to get here a user is disconnected. Now whenever you close the connection, you will get this message. So in this event, you can do all the heavy lifting of your application. Now just out of that, if you want to connect to your application again, you specify your address and press tab. And when you open your terminal, you're going to get a message, a user connected. Now just out of that, what I want to send message from the client to the server. To do that, in the index.html, here, just out of this h1, I'm going to create here a button and specify name to it, send message. If you want, you can create here input text box as well and put your input inside that input text box and send to the server. I'm just going to use here button to send some message to the server. Here I'm going to create button and then I'm going to pass here type, which is going to be submit, and then ID is going to be submit. So to access this button, I'm going to use this submit ID. Inside this socket, inside this script tag, right down here at the top, I'm first going to say let submit is equal to document.getElement by ID and pass the submit button. So now I can access this button, and then I'm going to say submit dot add event listener. I'm going to call click event on this button, and I'm going to execute this callback function when I click on the button. Now what I want to send a message to the server. So I'm just going to get the socket and call an event of it. So we need to grab this statement and put that after this socket statement right down here. So now here inside this add event listener, I'm going to say socket dot emit. The emit is going to emit an event, or you can say create an event which can easily be accessed in the server. So this is going to create a simple event with the ID message. Now that's upon you. You can specify any ID to this event. So message is the ID of this event. So just out of that, here I'm going to call callback function, or you can just directly return a message. I'm going to say here, hey, from client. I just wanted to send this message to the server. Let me save this. Back to the main.js. Right down here, just out of this disconnect, I'm going to get this message from the client when the client click on the button. So to get this message, I have to say socket.on, and then I want to specify here the exact ID of the client, which is message. I'm going to copy this exact event ID and pass that here. And then I'm going to get this message inside MSG variable and call here callback function. And then I'm going to say console.log and say client message MSG. That's it. Now using just a 3 line of code, you can get the message from the client. Let me show you. Save the changes. You can see I'm going to get here a message, a user connected, because we already have a connection with the 8080 port. And now let me reload the browser to get the button. Here I'm going to get this button, and in the console, the server is going to first disconnect and create a new connection with a new ID. Now once we have a new ID and new connection, I can just send a message to the server. When I click on the send message, I'm going to get the message to the server. Let me show you. If I toggle this window, something like this, and if I click on this send message, you can see when I click on the send message, I'm going to get the message from the client to the server. Now let's do the same thing from the server to the client. So to send the message from server to the client, I'm going to first open the server, which is going to be the main.js file, and I'm going to emit event. So I'm just going to simply say here socket.emit and create a new event, which is going to be server. You can specify any name to this event, that's upon you. And then I'm going to send a message to the client, which is receive from server. So I want to get this message in the client side. So let me save this back to the index.html, and right here after this event, right down here, I'm going to say socket.on, and I want to connect or listen to the event server. So I'm going to pass here server, comma, pass here message MSG. You can pass any argument here, and then I'm going to say console.log .msg. Let me save this. Save this file as well. Let me reload the browser and open the console. You can see in the client side, I'm going to get a message received from server. That's super easy, right? So you communicate between client and server easily with socket.io. Now, what if you want to join any server, or you can say any communication from the server? In that case, you can do that as well. Let me show you. For example, let's suppose you don't know about this server ID. You only know the server address, and you have to access or get all the connections inside the client. So to do that, you can just simply create here. I'm going to comment this, and here I'm going to say constant. I'm going to create here a callback function. Listener is equal to, in the parentheses, I'm going to first call here event name and the argument. As you can see, I'm going to pass here a spirit operator to access all the events, and then I'm going to pass here arrow function because this is a type of function. Just out of that, I'm going to say console.log. Let me print event name and arguments. And if I say here socket dot on any, and if I pass this listener on any method, then when I save the changes, you can see here I have here a property called server, and to that property I have here a message received from server. So if I have multiple emits in my server, for example, if I say server 1, save the changes, reload the browser, you can see now, right now I have 2 messages from the server. So I hope you understand how basically this socket.io works. If you want me to create amazing things with socket.io, then let me know in the comment section. If you find anything useful, make sure to press the like button. If you have any question or doubt, make sure to comment me down. Subscribe for more latest videos. That is all for now. I will see you in the next one.